she's a physicist, she's a teacher, she's amazing and very funny. Will you please put your hands together for Eva McGuire?
So I'm not sure I'm really supposed to be here because I did a PhD and a couple of postdocs, but then I did reach that point where you have to ask yourself, what can I do with my life now where I will do more work and get paid less? And so I became a secondary school teacher. And and kind of, to be honest, like teaching was always something I sort of wanted to do and was interested in doing, but both my parents are teachers. So when I finished my degree and I was like, I kind of want to make my own way in life and do something different. And so most people, when they rebel against their parents, they first of all, they do it while they're teenagers, not after they've graduated from university. And they take a load of drugs or they wear crazy makeup or run off and join the circus. And, they do something with a certain element of fun to it. But I did a PhD in physics. And so after a few years of, long days and sometimes nights in a darkened room alone with an electron microscope and hours poring over data wondering what the fuck does this mean and will anyone ever care, and realising that no, they won't, I got my PhD. And so I was like, Mom, Dad, how do you like me now? And they were like, well, you worked really hard and this is a really impressive achievement and we're just very, very proud of you. So, as a rebellion, mine was very hard work and it took a really long time and it made my parents very proud. Score. So about 6 months ago, I left my postdoc to become a teacher, and in many ways my life is quite different now to how it was then. But I was a physicist, so I worked in a very male-dominated environment, and now I spend most of my working days surrounded by teenagers. So actually that's not very different. So that's a really cheap joke, and I apologise. And it's not really fair because I actually work in a girls' school at the moment, so my students are quite a bit more mature than most of my former colleagues. And it's International Women's Day, so I can make that joke. There are actually really big differences between being a scientist and a science teacher. You may be surprised to learn. But say for example, the school I work in at the moment, the first class in the morning starts at 8:30. I know. That's it's a hard 8:30. It's not like when I was a postdoc, this is my approach to being a postdoc, where, I plan to be in for 9:30 and rock up sometime between 10 and 11 and be there in time for coffee. Whereas, the times I do sort of regret this change I've made are, when the alarm goes off at some ungodly hour and I have to get up and rush into school hours before the sun comes up because it's winter and I live in Ireland, and try and get it onto the photocopier and get all my demos set up before the kids come in. And I think, God, if I were still a postdoc, and I were an hour or 2 hours late for work, nobody would notice or care. But I must admit that probably says more about what a terrible postdoc I was than it does about the profession in general. And to be honest, I am actually really, really quite in awe of people who do manage to be productive postdocs and researchers. Now I work in a building where every 40 minutes a bell goes off to tell me what I need to do next. And I think actually I need that structure imposed upon me. I'm not really able to go into work and work out for myself what I need to do to achieve my goals. I'm just not actually enough of a grown-up to do that. So I think there are probably quite a lot of people in this room who are successfully combining being a postdoc and being a useful and productive member of society, and that's something I never mastered, so good for you guys. And I do have that structure to my day and that timetable, but having said that, every day is different and I never really know what's going to happen, and kids say the funniest things, it's true. A while ago I was working in this school where I was teaching some first year science, and every day they would come in and they'd be like, Miss, when are we going to do fire? Are we going to do fire today? Because that was the scientific term that they used. But unfortunately I was teaching them in a lab where the gas mains weren't connected because of some issues with the school building. So I wasn't able to do fire with them at the time. And so when I explained this to them, they had all sorts of really actually quite creative and imaginative solutions to this problem that would allow us to do fire. And one of them, one kid was always telling me about this thing that his brother apparently did quite often at home in his parents' living room, which was to write his name on the wall with hairspray and then set that on fire. And so Owen's suggestion was that we do that in the lab, and so I had to explain that really, like, that's not something that I could do in a school lab with a group of students and confidently keep my job. And you know, it's not on the junior cert, and you shouldn't do it in your parents' living room. Yeah, well, one thing I've noticed, like when I meet people and I tell them that I'm a physicist or a physics teacher, one of the more common reactions that I get is like, oh God, like I hated physics in school. It was so boring. It was so bad. I had a terrible physics teacher. And part of me is thinking like, oh, like obviously I wasn't your physics teacher, but like actually a greater part of me is just somewhat like just actually baffled and bemused by this, because to me, like, the study and the pursuit of physics is about trying to understand the universe, and how could it not be exciting and engaging and fascinating to be understanding more about, you know, everything around you. And very occasionally I do feel that I get a little bit of that, a sense of excitement and wonderment across to my students. And like a while ago I was teaching some first years about atoms, and to be honest, I guess everything being made of atoms is something that I've known about for so long, I kind of take it for granted at this stage. And it took like explaining it to a group of 12-year-olds to realise that actually if this isn't something that you're very familiar with, it's quite a wild concept, like it's pretty crazy. And the kids were getting really excited by this, and they were saying like, Miss, are you saying that I am made of atoms? And I was like, yeah, you're made of atoms, I'm made of atoms, we're all made of atoms. And then this other kid, like, it was blowing her mind. She started rubbing her hand across the table, and she was like, Miss, so right now, are my atoms touching the table? Now, apologies to the scientists in the room, I did not get super technical on her and explain that, you know, due to the nature of atoms and matter, like, you're technically never touching anything, because I thought that the mere concept of atoms was blowing her mind enough for one day. And so I just responded, yeah, like, your atoms are touching the table's atoms. And she's like, whoa, the table is made of atoms too? And I say, yeah, like, you're made of atoms, the table's made of atoms, even the air is atoms. And so it was really, like, it's really cool. It's really fun when occasionally you get to see young people, like, get really excited about, you know, scientific concepts. And kind of what was happening there was those students were undergoing a slight shift in their, like, their understanding and their view of the world around them. And it is a huge privilege to get to be there and try to facilitate that. So, I mean, tonight is a school night, and so tomorrow morning, the alarm will go off at ridiculous o'clock, and I'll have to get up and rush into school and try and be the first one on the photocopier, and I probably will curse my choices in life. But overall, I do really feel quite lucky with what I do. Like, I have a lot of fun, and I do look forward to going into school, and I look forward to seeing my students, well, most of my students. But there are 3 other things about my new career that I am really, really excited about, and they are June, July, and August. Thank you very much.
Eva McGuire, everybody.